All right. So I normally say my name is Bentley deBardelaben-Phillips, but today in this faith space, I'm going to invoke my mother, Carolyn, may she rest in peace. And she would say, I want you to meet the Dr. Bentley deBardelaben-Phillips. I was like, Mother, it doesn't take all that. Yes, it does, child. So anyway, I'm honored to be with you all this morning. I will be your moderator with our panelists who will introduce themselves in just a moment. We do have one of our panelists who just landed, and so we will hope and pray that he shows up on time. If not, God is good all the time. And all the time? That's right. So we will just go forth. Come on. She gave me a big old kiss earlier and said, thank you for the other day. And I was like, what you talking about? Willis? Anyway, so that being said, I will say a little bit about myself and we'll move on to the panelists. I'm very honored to be able to stand before you today as a lifelong survivor of HIV. I was infected more than 30 years ago, so God is good, as I've said before. So I can tell you about taking 80 pills a day to taking 2 shots. So that's quite the journey. So we don't know, right? Thank you. Yeah, but this conversation isn't about me unless we have to fill time because our boy won't make it. But I know that we're going to be just fine. And so I work for the United Church of Christ. I have been there 19 years as I have 2 positions. One is transitional executive, and that's with the senior team. In business settings, that would be called a vice president's position, but in the church, it's a transitional executive. And as well as a team leader for our social advocacy justice team. And so I oversee about a staff of 40. And like I said, I've been there for 19 years. And so I'm married to David deBardelaben-Phillips in the back there, who will offer you a somatic presentation right after this one. And we live in the Cleveland area with 2 dogs, very spoiled dogs, and really so spoiled that they don't even, when we travel, they have someone come to them, right? So they don't go to any dog spa or anything like that. But anyway, that's a little bit about myself. And a Pittsburgher, I was born in Pittsburgh. Chicago is what I consider home. That's where I was married to my ex-wife, the mother of my 2 children, and who are 38 and 41. And so I'm very blessed to have them in my life as well. So again, enough about me. We're going to just go down the line and introduce our panelists, beginning with Gina.
Good morning. Gina Brown. I live in New Orleans, well, right outside of New Orleans in Chalmette, Louisiana. I've been working in HIV since 2002, and I've been living with HIV since 1994.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Tori Cooper. I currently, any Republicans in the room? No. I live in Atlanta, but on paper, I live on for the Republican. Well, it's true. I got doxxed. It's a long story. So I was diagnosed in 1989.
Bless you.
Long time ago. And I'm incredibly proud and happy to be here today.
I'm Elder George Kerr III, and I have been HIV positive since 1993, and so happy to be here.
So we have about 6 segments of questions, so we're going to just journey through, beginning with personal experience in daily life. And so we're going to start with you, Gina, if that's okay with you. Can you tell us what has life living with HIV taught you about yourself and how your faith has informed all that?
Before I was diagnosed with HIV, I didn't know that I had the strength that I have. I thought that, let me back up a little bit. I'm also in recovery, right? So when you're in recovery and you're in treatment, the last day they put you in was called the hot seat. So they put me in a hot seat and they just throw questions at you and you have to be honest because recovery is about honesty. And the last question I was asked was, if you find out in 5 years you have AIDS, what you gonna do? Wow. And I said, without skipping a beat, I said, I would smoke up Peru. And they were like, huh? I said, I smoke so much crack, I die. Because that's how I felt. Well, I got my diagnosis, and the last thing I wanted to do was smoke crack. What I wanted to do was figure out how to live. You know, because I was told you have AIDS and you're gonna die. Now you tested positive for HIV.
Yeah.
It was all in one sentence.
Yeah.
But I really thought, you know, and it has really shaped my journey as far as me finding strength where I didn't think there was any strength, me picking up the pieces, me putting my life back together, and me moving on. You know.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you like to take that same question?
Sure. The truth is, I don't remember a lot of life before 1989 because I was 19. But what I do remember is people dying. I remember people dying before they said Black people were getting it. I remember being in middle school and hanging around with folks who were in high school and who were already out of school. And I remember seeing Black people and queer people, and we use the word trans now, but trans people dying and no one cared. Some of my first memories that we would now refer to as HIV activism was we used to do, when I used to perform on stage, we used to do benefit shows to bury people, folks in our own community, because funeral homes didn't want to touch their dead bodies. And so that was really, those are the things that I remember. I remember people being so sick that they were basically simply living in shells of bodies that they had lived in for a few years. And I remember, I've always loved to dance. And I remember that there was a guy, George, who was from Virginia. I grew up in Virginia. And I remember George and I went out dancing one weekend. We came to DC to go to Tracks. Some DC folks in here.
Yeah. Remember Tracks?
You remember Tracks? And I remember we went to Tracks. We drove up to DC, went to Tracks, had a ball. Went home. I let him know when I made it home, and I never heard from George again. And literally within 2 weeks, he was dead. That's what I remember. It took a long time before I started to realize that there was something on the other side of that. And so it's hard to even process how sad things were and how hard some people had to fight to find some joy in those days. And so I remember them with fondness because those of us who lived through it are often still here to talk about it. But there's so much of it is just this big cloud.
Thank you for that. George.
So when I found out I was positive, I hadn't been in church in several years. I was condemned as a gay man. And so I walked out of the church. And thankfully, my current church pulled me back and have been able to do the things that I've been able to do and been able to grow living with HIV and grow my faith. So I give a lot of praise to my family at Westminster, DC.
Yeah. Thank you, George. So how about we go to this question here? So how do you take care of your mental, emotional, and spiritual health in the midst of the day-to-day HIV life? Sure, George can start. The last shall be first.
So I was thinking I was going last. So can you repeat the question?
Of course.
I'm multitasking over here.
It's all good, brother. So how do you take care of your mental, emotional, and spiritual health while living with HIV in the midst of the world in which we have to deal with today?
So I would say before January, it was a lot easier, to be quite honest. And I would practice self-care. It's been a lot harder these last 6 months. And what is going to face us living with HIV and the possibility that we're going to lose our Medicaid. We may lose our housing voucher. We are going to lose people. So how trying to answer these questions and continue to address the community, because the community has these questions and much more, and we don't have the answers. So we have to figure out that balance that we have to live in order to take care of ourselves and to do community engagement, which community engagement is now changed forever.
Thank you.
So what I heard was somehow integrating faith and HIV. And I thought about my experience and the experience of some other folks that I know, and I'm trans and always have been, even when we didn't use that terminology. And I thought about my experience growing up in church and having attended and still financially supporting a relatively conservative, very traditional Baptist church. What I realized is people love you and they like you until you disclose anything.
Say that. Say that again. Really?
They love you until you tell them you're lesbian. They love you until you tell them that you're gay. And they love you and like you until you tell them that you're trans. You can show them all day, but until you say the words, I am this. And the same thing with HIV. And what I've realized is these were the most loving hypocrites that I've ever met. They were.
Right.
And what they did was they modeled for us in the most negative and also positive ways, because you got to glean from it what you can, how to love and protect people. Because even the folks who all of a sudden they still loved you but didn't like you anymore after you made all those disclosures, they showed you what to do and what not to do simply by their own action. The same word that they used to prop you up when you were getting A's in school, they used the other part of the scripture, the part behind the comma, to condemn you to hell. They used the Bible as a sword to cut your throat and to stab you in the back instead of loving you back to hell. And I think for many of us, what it took is us learning scripture, understanding religion and culture and traditions for ourselves, and developing an even closer, in spite of it all, developing a closer relationship with whomever you call God, whatever you call God, in order to realize, first of all, they were only acting out what they knew. It doesn't excuse it, but you understand them more. But it also helps to provide, I think, a shield to help people understand that what they're doing, again, is being the most loving hypocrites that they can be. And hopefully, even in that hurt, you're able to help them understand why they're being a hypocrite and to help them to turn from their wicked ways.
Come on.
Seminary taught me all that stuff. And to help them turn from their wicked way and to help them understand how they can build people up instead of tearing them down with the exact same word and the same words from the same word.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gina.
When it comes to how I take care of myself emotionally and all of that, I often think of a Bible verse: faith without works is dead. I can have faith all day, but if I'm not doing my part. So the first thing I had to do, because I thought I was going to die, was get in touch with my emotional well-being first. So I learned how to meditate. I learned how to not so much pray, but see, I address or I approach faith differently than some people. I don't pray, I talk to him. And I call him her, because I believe that the only thing a man has ever given birth to is an idea. So I do, I really do.
Tell the truth now.
So I do say her, I say goddess, and I just talk. And in talking, things were revealed to me. I started seeing things. My daughter's name is Jemani. Her name means faith in God. Because when I was pregnant with her when I was diagnosed.
Oh, wow.
And I said one prayer, leaving the clinic, let my baby be okay. And I never prayed that again. I never said those words again. And I was working with this guy named USCHA. Yes, people have names. And Mo, I was going to name my baby Tupac. I was, because I thought I was having a boy. I thought I was having a boy. So I was going to name my baby Tupac. And Mo came to work one day and he said, I had a dream and you should name your baby Jemani. And I said, well, that sounds like a girl name. He said, it is. I said, oh no, I'm having a boy. Surprise, November 29th, she's a girl. And her name is Jemani and it means faith in God. You know, and I did have that faith. And my daughter is now living with HIV. And it was two things that made that possible. Goddess and 076, a study that I was on, taking medication to make sure that happened. But that's when I started healing emotionally. And then recently, I read something, and this is how I knew I was healed. I read a quote that said, when you're healed, you stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you.
Yeah, repeat that, please.
When you are healed, you stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you. And when I saw that, and I said, it has been years since I've gone off on people. It's been years since I've done this. I am healed. You know, but I know that I still have to do some things to stay healed, right? I have to have those daily conversations with my higher power. I have to make sure that I'm meditating. I have to make sure that when I get in my car, before I turn it on, I say this. Please don't let me cuss nobody out because I don't want to be that person today. And I try really hard. You know, when it comes to faith and my HIV, I think of my grandfather who died in 2004. He lived in Sacramento. He was a minister. And every Sunday I talked to my grandfather and he would say, Gina, have you found a church home yet? Y'all know how the old Baptist preachers are. And I would say, no, grandfather, I haven't. But then I started telling him about my outreach and what I was doing in community. And he said, you have found a church home. Your church home is outside. It's not in a building.
Come on now.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
That's how you give back. That's how you show that you appreciate the life you have. So that's what I've continued to do. You know, if it wasn't for COVID, I would be under the bridge with the unhoused people talking about HIV, housing, food, all of those things, because I don't ignore anyone. I see people for people.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to move to healthcare and treatment here. And so we're going to start with you, Tori, all right? So your question is, what has your experience been like assessing consistent medical care and medication?
First say, I have a lot of privilege. I want to first acknowledge that in everything that I say, I have a whole lot of privilege, as do many. I don't even know everybody in the room, but I understand that many of us in this room do too. My experiences navigating healthcare is very different than many of the folks that we are charged to serve. I want to acknowledge that. I am a college graduate a couple of times over, private health insurance. When I couldn't work, I had health, et cetera, et cetera. And it's pretty good. So it pretty much covers all my medication anytime I make a change or whatever. So I will make it in the grand scheme of things what we are experiencing in the healthcare system. We are experiencing hell on earth when it comes to healthcare, and it's going to get worse. And what I mean by that is, for people who are diagnosed with HIV, you're told, here, take these pills for the rest of your life for something that you will always have, even if a test doesn't show it. That's a lot to take on at one time. When you change a job, when you lose a job, when you get a job, if you move out of that zip code, if you move out of that state, there will be challenges with your health care for most folks. And so there's a healthcare system that barely provides care. And it barely addresses health. And so what I believe is, for most people living, and I've seen this so many times over, for most people living with HIV, They simply want to be able to get whatever product it is, or products plural, that is going to keep them get them healthy and keep them healthy. Sometimes that means HIV medicine. Sometimes it means mental health medicine, because that's part of HIV care.
Yeah.
Sometimes that means housing, because that's part of HIV care. And we have a healthcare system that does not address anything other than take this pill
Mhm.
for this that you're going to have for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And so overall, there needs to be, in my opinion, a huge overhaul of the healthcare system. Not in the next 3 years,
Yes,
under the next
yes,
administration.
right.
It needs to happen. But it needs to happen. And I believe we are way, way overdue for that. So there's a whole bunch of challenges. I'm grateful that there are more options for people now. I've heard folks discussing being on an injectable. I've
Mhm.
heard folks who talk about taking pills. I'm glad that people have options. I'm
Mhm.
glad that people are taking their medicine. And I'm glad that people still want to be healthy by
Mhm.
taking their medicine. I worry a lot because even though we have a lot of privilege, it ain't always easy for us.
Say that.
And so, what about the folks who have less power and privilege in society for us? How are we helping them? I wish that was the question that you asked.
Mhm. Mhm. You can talk to that if you want to.
Oh, okay. So how are we helping them? I think what has happened, well, what we're experiencing is, for those of us who've been around a long time, I'm 55. I'm 35 on dating sites. But for those of us who have been around for a long time, I think what we're starting to see are things that are reminiscent of before,
Yes.
or when cocktails first hit the market.
Yes.
Or first became available to Black people. Let me say it that way, because white people started getting them in 95. Black people started getting them in 96.
Mhm. Mhm.
They got quiet when I said that,
Well,
but it's true.
racism is a
That's what,
thing.
am I correct? Thank you. All right. Some of y'all didn't even know that. But it's very reminiscent of that, where if you've seen the movie Dallas Buyers Club, where people were sharing medications and or selling medications and stealing medication, I think we're at the precipice of that happening again.
Mhm.
Where I know folks who started hoarding medications for their own benefit during COVID. That medication is expired, but I think they were onto something. I don't encourage people to just hoard medications, but I think we're at a point where if you can get your medication delivered 7 days earlier every month, every 3 months, you'll have a whole extra bottle.
That's right. That's right.
I think we're getting to that point again, where we're going to have to see some of that old school activism that's going to happen to make sure that the folks who are the least of these are getting the things that they need, in addition to the things that we need also. We're going to have to start putting people in our extra bedrooms
Mhm.
and putting people on their couches until they can find a place to live again.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you for that. George, anything you want to add?
I'm in agreement with everything you just said.
Mhm. Mhm.
My biggest fear right now is those that are on the corner. But let me just start out with, I come from privilege also, and I recognize that. I work for the DCCFAR, Center for AIDS Research, on the community engagement. And so when I had to change doctors last year, they made sure they put me with the lead researcher at the clinic, because they knew that anyone else, I was going to challenge the heck out of them. And so that they needed to do that. And I recently switched to the injectable. It's been life-saving. My biggest fear now is I won't be able to get it and have to go back onto a daily pill. Those pills, there's a such thing as pill fatigue.
Yep.
You just get tired. And those pills could be sitting right there. I just have to stretch a little bit to get them. I'll do it in a minute. An hour later, I'll get it in a minute. 3 weeks later, oh, I better get it now. That's the reality that we're in.
Mm.
And I've been very concerned with DC and the lack of conversation about how we're going to prepare. In January, we're losing our Medicaid. to thousands of people, 700 of them living with HIV.
Mm.
So what are we going to do for those 700 people? We know the ADAP won't cover it. The pharmacy company, they're not going to be able to give us the medication also. So what is our plan? Do we build a mutual aid for the HIV community? And if so, when do we start? We should have started last year. But we have to start having those conversations. So I'll do a quick plug. We're having a town hall on Saturday morning at 9 to 11 a.m. to have this type of conversation, to see what we as a community can do when the government's not going to be there for us.
Thank you, George. I'm going to change the question on you, okay? Thank you. Okay, Gina, what advice would you give someone newly diagnosed who is just about to start treatment?
I would tell the person, first, find out everything you can about HIV. Because the more you know about something, it's not scary. And whatever medications you are prescribed, take them exactly as prescribed. I know it's not always easy, right? I've been living with HIV 31 years, and I am not this great person, y'all, but I've only missed my meds 3 times. Because when I was diagnosed, the day I was diagnosed, this one woman said you're gonna die, and another woman said you can live if you do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Because she said that, I believed her. And one of those things was take my medication exactly as prescribed. I missed the dose when I evacuated for Hurricane Katrina. I went to Texas to speak at a university overnight trip and forgot my medicine. And the last time I was having a colonoscopy and the doctor said, don't take anything. So I didn't take it. And then when I got there, he said, did you take HIV meds? I said, no. He said, why not? Because you told me not to. But anyway, that's the 3 things. So I would tell them my story. I would encourage them that that medications have come a long way. I understand all of the fear about the healthcare system, but our meds have come a long way. I used to be on 17 pills a day. I'm on 1 pill a day now. You know, and things are getting easier. We hear about injectables, you know, we hear about different things that people can take to make their lives easier. I would also tell that person to link up with people who are living with HIV or who know HIV. It wasn't until I came to DC in 2002 and met Linda Scruggs that my life changed. Because I've been living with HIV in New Orleans, but I was living underground. You know, only a handful of people knew. I wasn't trying to educate anybody. And I met Linda. And Linda was like meeting Diana Ross. I felt like I met Diana Ross. Don't tell her I said that, y'all, but I did. She was just this fabulous woman. And I said, if I ever get a chance, that's who I want to be like. You know, so she was my North Star. And I continue to follow people who were living with HIV and learning from them. You know, I met Tori and I learned so much from Tori. Tori told us one time that the healthcare system was not created for us. The HIV healthcare system, it was created for white boys to save white boys. Right. And it did a great job. We were in DC at a meeting and Tori said that and I never forgot that. So I would tell people that that this before you heard the words you are living with HIV, you had HIV. The day before you came in here, you already had it. You just didn't know. Let's learn how to live in an emotionally intelligent way. And let's really think about how we can stay healthy. You know, I'll be 60 in January. And I never thought I would make it this far. But now that I'm about to be 60, I'm like, wait a minute, I need 20 more years. I want to get to 80, you know? That kind of thing. And then let them truly take them by the hand and let them see the beautiful community that I'm a part of. You know, because you can tell people something all day, but if they don't see it, they don't really believe you.
That's right.
You know, so that's what I would do.
Thank you. One of you two want to take that question?
I think connecting with someone that is HIV positive, we need to do a lot more so that they can really understand where we come and that we can survive this and thrive with it. And it's important to really talk about finding that good primary care doctor and making sure that you're getting quality of life. Because there's a difference in just going to the doctor and taking pills.
Yeah.
But living a quality of life is so important. And so to be out there and to connect, mental health is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you isolate,
Yep.
it's going to become even harder.
Mm-hmm.
And so find that support system. And there is a support system that's on one level, but then you got to find a support system that's on that bigger level that you can be honest. And when you miss that medication, you can say, I missed my medication. And I haven't been taking it for a week, so that that person can say, okay, and hold you accountable in
Mm-hmm.
getting that medication. And if you, the doctor's appointments and to all of the things that you need to do to make sure that you are getting that quality of life.
Yes.
I'm actually going to inject a thought here and say that yes to all of that, but to recognize also that you are in charge of you. Meaning that if you get a healthcare provider that treats you like crap,
Fine.
that's right. That's right. Find someone who will see you as human, worthy of all that you are entitled to by the Creator that's gifted us all equally, and make sure you get what you need and ask for it. And if you don't like it, go out to the front desk and scream out about that, because I have certainly had in this 30-something year journey folks who treated me like,
Yep.
and I was like, yeah, sure.
That's, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a goal.
Mm-hmm.
I think for many people, if I remember correctly, the question you asked was someone who was newly diagnosed.
Correct. Yes.
And I think for most people, it's not even a consideration
Mhm.
that I can fire a doctor,
Mhm.
that what they said to me might be wrong,
Mhm.
that I deserve
Mhm.
X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
I think for many people, especially newly diagnosed, even if you suspect you may have had HIV for a while, I think for many people, there's the shock of discovery.
Mhm.
I think there is fear.
Mhm.
And I think there's a shame that many people feel upon officially learning a diagnosis that for some people makes them a walking corpse.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's hard to function
Mhm.
unless you're told exactly what to do. And that's why some people end up on really horrible, back in the day, people end up on really horrible regimens that didn't fit their lifestyle. Or they took medicines before they were ready. Or they stayed with a doctor that was treating them like crap because they didn't feel empowered or even whole or even half enough
Mhm.
to speak up for themselves.
Mhm.
I think what happens is as you start learning more about your HIV, because it's your HIV,
Right.
it's tied to your DNA. And you start, there's a certain type of ownership over that. I think what happens is all the other parts of your healthcare become better. Even if your body is continually failing you in different ways, your healthcare becomes better because your mental health does. There's an understanding of your HIV, and therefore there's a kind of an understanding of the medicines that you're putting into your body around your HIV, and in turn of the care and the providers who are providing you with that medicine. And it does give you the courage to say, you know what, I don't like the way they're talking to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
That doctor's wrong.
Mhm.
That nurse can kiss my ass.
Mhm.
You grow into that.
Mhm.
Just like we grow into our spirituality and our relationships with God and with the church and with other people. I think that's a part of maturity that happens when you feel ownership and when you feel supported in your HIV journey.
Yeah.
And often that comes from the things that all of you have said. When you're able to share your diagnosis and part of your journey with someone who you trust and who shows that trust with you.
Yes. Thank you for that. Yes. Go ahead. Jump in.
So a couple months ago, I was at a meeting and with an executive director of a nonprofit, and they got a phone from their back at their organization, and the person just tested positive, and the doctor said, "Oh, you have AIDS."
What?
Oh yeah, they tell you that.
Okay, let that sit for a second. You have AIDS. without any testing or anything.
Mm.
But that's what the provider said to them. So it's going to be upon us, people living with HIV, to correct and say, no, you have HIV
Mhm.
or you have advanced HIV.
Mhm.
Okay. And make sure that they understand that the reality of what that really means. And we've got to, as nonprofit organizations, be ready for those conversations, because providers are, their time is getting shorter and shorter with the person. And so they're not giving them all the correct information. And so they leave out of there, quite frankly, maybe suicidal.
Mhm.
And we've got to make sure that we are there to make sure that they do not.
Yeah. Important. Tori, you actually, when you said shame, right? So you're taking us into the next segment about stigma, right? And how that impacts us. So I'm going to start with you. All right. So how has stigma from society, family, friends shown up in your life?
So in my conversations with people, I define stigma as fear that's only real to you.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are terrified of snakes. I happen to love nice shoes and handbags, especially when they're made out of snakes. Just saying. So I don't have a fear of snakes. And it's the same thing with stigma.
Yeah.
There's some people who are terrified of disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not my favorite thing to do.
That was
Right.
But when I realized that I can't give you anything in bed but a good time, because it's an undetectable joke, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But a good time,
Right.
all of a sudden, that particular part of the stigma was gone for me.
Mm.
And so many people experience stigma for a number of reasons. I know people because of their waistline. If you don't like it, change it.
Mhm.
I know people because of their age. If you don't like it, change it.
35, right?
Oh, let's go social media.
Okay.
On hookup sites. But whatever it is that you feel that shame or that stigma, and here's another story, because I'm 55 and we tell stories to make a point.
Yeah.
When I first started going to a provider, it was like, where in the world is common sense? I swear to God, I used to wear a baseball cap and glasses. And it could be in the summer and I would have a jacket on and sometimes a scarf. Like, it was, in hindsight, it was stupid. That's the only way to describe it. And one day it dawned on me that every single person in here is here for the exact same reason. And what I'm showing them is how to be ashamed of themselves.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm.
And I tell people, I believe that was God telling me how stupid I was. And so what I realized is that for me, once that switch happened, and I could go into a provider's office and say, hey, how you doing? I love that jacket. I hope you're having a great day today. Once I could do that, it suddenly, not only did it help impact my health, but what I realized, because people have said to me, I saw you and you spoke to me one day, and I was scared to speak back. I've had people who said to me, well, you spoke to me in the clinic one day.
Mhm.
Great. It helped them to break down some of the stigma that they may have been feeling simply about the place that they go to receive health care.
Mm.
And I think that's the thing. We stigmatize an HIV diagnosis in our society, and about being queer and about being trans, some things that just are, in ways that are absolutely beyond ridiculous. And so once you take ownership over whatever your things are, it empowers you to really focus on being the best at whatever it is
Mhm.
that you are. If you're a preacher and you got HIV and you're hiding your HIV, there's something that you will always hold back.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as a preacher, as a pastor, as an evangelist, as a teacher, I'm an ordained deacon. As a deacon, your goal is to help people get to Christ. But if you're always holding something back, it's that one thing that you're holding back that's keeping somebody from getting where they need to go.
Mm.
Yeah.
In addition to yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so addressing stigma head on, it doesn't have to be in a group meeting, but addressing it time and time again, and then readdressing it every once in a while to make sure that you beat it down, are, I think, the best and most empowering ways to get to greater health. Because I think ultimately that's what we want. We want to be healthy Christians. We want to be healthy non-Christians. We want to be healthy people. And for some of us, you want to be a healthy person who's living with HIV or one who doesn't have HIV. But if the goal is health, then addressing all of the different stigmas, because today it's an HIV diagnosis. Tomorrow, it's stigma around something else. And so addressing each of those things and then constantly readdressing them and figuring out ways to make the healthiest decisions for yourself will continue to be, because we're modeling for folks how to be healthy. And I think that's why many of us do disclose when we're in places like this.
Yes.
If I'm picking watermelon, don't ask me about my HIV status. But if I'm at this conference, you can ask me anything you want.
Yes.
It's my responsibility whether or not I want to answer it. But these are places where we can provide and model for people what healthy and open conversation and reduced stigma.
Yes.
Not necessarily no stigma, but reduced stigma can look like.
Yes. Gina?
Yes. I was one of those people that was filled with stigma when I was first diagnosed. Because, you know, HIV is looked at as a behavioral disease and not a medical thing. So I remember going to the clinic. I would walk to the clinic and I would have a book in front of my face like this. And I think back now, and I was like, oh, Lord, I'm so glad there weren't like poles and pillars and stuff, because I would have walked into them because I was so afraid of you seeing me that I couldn't see where I was going. And we're in New Orleans, we have a charity, we had a charity hospital system. And the clinic used to be behind the old charity hospital, and people would hang out on a ramp to see who was going in the clinic. I swear. And I was like, oh my God, they can see me. So one day I was like, you know what? How y'all doing? And they scattered like roaches when you turn the light on. Because they wanted to see you, but they didn't want you to really see them. You know, and I dealt with my stigma. I was so stigmatized that when it came time to tell my partner, who I was pregnant for, that I was living with HIV, I told him over the phone because I didn't want to see his face when I told him that. It took many years for me to work through the stigma. And like I said, coming to DC and meeting Linda. I was at a conference, and I don't know if any of y'all know River Houston. She's a comedian, and she does a lot of HIV conferences. And she was on stage with this big old black dildo, and she was asking people who has HIV. And people were jumping up, and I found myself on my feet. And I looked around, and I wanted the floor to open and just swim me, because I could not believe that I did that. I couldn't believe it. And lightning didn't strike me, and the world didn't end, and life kept going on. And I gave an interview once, y'all. I'm gonna stand up and show y'all something. And I talked in the interview because what helped me get rid of my stigma was I went out and I bought, some red Chucks, y'all. And I started wearing red Chucks as a symbol.
Oh my God.
I did an interview, and I said in the interview, I said, I'm the woman, well, I didn't say woman, I said, I'm the chick in New Orleans that you'll see running around the street with some red Chucks on. And I would find myself in a corner store, and people would pass by me and they would say, you that lady. And I would smile at them and they would say, I have it too, but don't nobody know. Can I have your number?
Oh my God.
And I would give them my number.
Yeah.
And I started connecting with people like that. And then it helped me come out of my stigma.
Yeah.
And then I just started telling everybody.
Yeah.
And one of my friends used to always say, this is how you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Gina, I have HIV. I said, no, I don't. She said, you do. I was like, no, I don't do that. But it was my way of making people, of easing them. Because I was already okay with it at this point. So I wanted you to be okay with it. But I was so stigmatized that I was diagnosed in 94. My children's father died in 97, and I didn't get into a relationship until 2014.
Wow.
2014. And I know you over there counting, I saw you. That was a long time.
Yeah.
And I was the person that had never been without a partner. I was always with somebody. But stigma made me not want to be with anybody. And then by the time I wanted to be with anybody, I got a little older. And it was like, they ain't checking for, ain't no dude checking for no 40-year-old. They want the 20-year-olds with the tight bodies. And it was okay. Yeah. It was okay. But I'll tell you this about stigma. stigma will eat you alive.
Yes, ma'am.
And stigma impacts women a lot differently than men. And I'm not being sexist, I'm telling y'all what I know. Women get a diagnosis and we go underground. Because a lot of what we do is social. We take our kids to school, we sit on the porch, we talk to our girlfriends. Men, y'all go to work and y'all come home. You might see your partner on the weekend and watch a football game. You know, but for women, it's a social disease. So we go underground and we die there. And that's what we got to stop. Even in 2025, people are still going underground and dying, you know, because of stigma.
Thank you for that. I'm going to change your question, okay, George? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so can you tell us, George, what do you wish others understood about HIV that could reduce stigma and its misconceptions?
Language justice.
Say more.
Language justice, and that we're constantly learning and educating ourselves how to meet the people where they're at and be where we need to be at. And it's, you know, it's always expanding. And so we have to have that knowledge to be able to grow and to understand that we need to take that step outside the box. We've got to constantly grow. We find ourselves comfortable in a box, and then we have to expand. Get comfortable again, expand. And that's what language justice is, and making sure that all of us get the information that we need around living with HIV or not getting it, being on PrEP. It's important for us, individuals that's living with HIV, to encourage those that are sexually active to be on PrEP and know what PrEP and DoxyPEP is. And to know all of that you can about sexuality.
Thank you. Ladies, anyone want to say anything more?
We good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move to resilience and advocacy. And we're going to start with you, Tori. What role does community support play in your journey?
I think, so when I moved to Atlanta a few years ago, it was the first time that I'd met people who were so openly living with HIV, who were in all different phases of their life. They were different ages. They were employed, they weren't employed, they were able-bodied, they were less able-bodied. But it was the first time that I met, is Eddie still in the room? A community of people, no, different Eddie. A community of people who so openly talked about their statuses as if they just had a sprained ankle or a bad trick knee. And it was without question the most empowering thing, because I've always had one or two friends that you could talk to about it. But to run into people, what I thought was accidentally, but God in purpose. I met Freda Jones, who is, Freda Jones is like one of my, but Linda Scruggs is her, Freda Jones. I remember telling Freda, I want to do what you do, talking about advocacy. And listening to people and having a community who got it. I am 55 years old. I was diagnosed 36 years ago last month and have never had a doctor who's ever taken an HIV pill. Let that sink in. Because most people with HIV don't have doctors who have HIV. So there are certain things that a doctor can tell you, but they don't know firsthand. And having someone who understands what it feels like to have that queasiness in your stomach because you didn't eat enough, or to feel that haze because that's just how the medicine feels, or to have the fear because you've run out of medicine before you ran out of money. Only community understands that and can share those feelings with you and empathize in the same way. And I always go back to the mental health aspect of it. The fact that you can share or not share with people who truly get it, I think is so life-saving, and why conferences like this are so important,
Mhm.
why caucuses and community groups are so important, and why one-on-one and behavioral health interventions, all of those things are so important because you get to hear from people who truly are the experts,
Mhm.
whether they have anything behind their name or not.
Mhm.
And that for some people is the difference between life and death. You have support from people who truly, truly get it.
Can I
Sure.
piggyback on
Yeah, please.
what Tori was saying? This is why PWN USA was created. We didn't have a space. Women didn't have a space where we were a part of a community. The guys, thank y'all for letting us in, but y'all didn't really want us in there. And we understand it. Y'all had things y'all needed to talk about, and there were things we needed to address, right? So PWN was created, and that was a wonderful thing. It created a community. But community is really important because a lot of times, like Tori said, you may think you're the only one. I remember when I got diagnosed in 94, I thought I was the only woman in New Orleans with HIV. Now look how narcissistic that is. I really did. Because nobody else was saying it.
Right.
Nobody, I didn't even really know a woman could get HIV because no women were saying it. It wasn't until my diagnosis I saw Ray Lewis Thornton. And I was like, where's she been? Then I saw her deal, and I was like, wait a minute. And I started seeing women, and community started being built. And we're gonna have to keep building that community because as young people come in, or as our dandelions and lifelong survivors are getting older, we got to make space for them too. Community is not just about me being with people that I've always known. It's about bringing new people into the fold. It's about making people feel important and connected somehow, some way. Community means a lot to me. I don't know where I would be without y'all. I really don't. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can we break that down a little bit
Sure.
more? So as the trans person on the panel, I think it's also important to acknowledge that there's some spaces that trans people, we just want to be by ourselves.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some spaces where we don't want to be by ourselves, but we want to be part of the whole.
Yes.
Also think that the polarization that happens and the segregation that can happen in these spaces, again, is modeling for us what the church did to us when you disclose something,
Mm-hmm.
that you were pregnant without a husband.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of you had to apologize in front of your congregation.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the HIV community, what has happened is PWN, the Transgender Law Center, I'm part of the Positively Trans Advisory Board, and so many other groups of people. There are organizations and entities and LLCs and ORGs that are just for Black gay men who are living with HIV.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some, I don't know if legally you can say just for white gay men living with HIV, but there are some that they just have white gay men living with HIV. And I think that for many of us, there are such powerful places for healing when done well.
Yep.
Because who speaks better trans than trans?
Correct. Yes.
Who speaks? I talk a lot about race. And if that bothers you, you need to figure out why and fix it. That ain't my problem. Who speaks better white man than white man?
Of course.
They're white men, right?
Yeah.
It's true. And so I appreciate the fact that within the HIV community, we are privileged to have our own little section.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also able to be a part of the puzzle as well.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist in every disease state. I had cancer, and there was no Black trans support group for cancer, people living with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't, not that I was aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's empowering when it's done well, and I appreciate that. And I think we should actually encourage that. And going back to the question you asked about people who knew, certainly we can say, hey, you should join a support group. But if you don't want to, if you haven't even acknowledged your status, it's unrealistic to say there's a whole community of people waiting to hear from you.
Yeah.
We can say it, but people don't get it.
Yeah.
Until they're ready for it.
Yeah.
And so making sure that we protect PWN, positively trans, whatever the white gay men living with HIV group is, or those groups are, making sure that we provide and nurture those spaces and continue to make them available to people who yet to get to the point that many of us are.
Thank you.
I don't know of any of these white gay men groups
Oh, Nate.
because I am not going to be a part of that. Diversity, equity means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And so you won't find me in those spaces and you will find me condemning them. But we've talked a lot, but one thing that we also need to acknowledge that some of us that are high in these communities, we need to have our own type of support system because we're going through a lot and we cannot let it known that, oh, George is fear of this or that because it's going to get in the community and then I won't be able to be as beneficial as I need to be. So I need to have a space that I can go to and breathe a minute and talk it out. I have therapy every 2 weeks, but my therapist is retiring in November. That therapy will stop because they no longer offer that. They will offer it for 12 weeks and that's it. So now I've got to figure out where I'm going to go next to be able to talk it out and to figure out what's next for this. So with everything else that's going on with community, I still got to take care of myself.
That's right.
You do.
Thank you. So George, we're going to stick with you and ask you, what gives you hope about the future of HIV treatment and awareness in these challenging times?
Spaces like this, where we can be open and honest, a safe space. And then when we start to rally, when back in February, when it came that they were closing CDC, the world of HIV spoke up and we were able to stop it for a moment. But the true activism that we have not seen in a while around HIV, we're going to start seeing again. I understand that there's going to be a new ACT UP coming out and reinvigorating. We're going to need that. And so that's my hope, is that we can lean on each other. And the faith community plays a big, big part of that.
Thank you. Ladies, either one?
You want to go? All right. Yes, George, I agree with everything you said. We do have to have a higher level of support when we're doing this work. I put on Facebook one morning, I said, I don't know why I got out of bed this morning. The people attacked me. They were like, you don't know why you got out of bed? Oh my God, the work you're doing? That still didn't take away the fact that I didn't know why I got out of bed that morning. It still didn't erase the fact that I was going through something.
Right.
And that I put it out there thinking that y'all my friends. Y'all gonna come and say, hey, what's going on? Let's have a conversation about this. Nobody did. They attacked me. And I took that post down. I said, I'm taking this down because they don't want to hear this because they see me a certain way.
Yeah.
But I'm vulnerable. I cry. You know, there are still days that I'm afraid. I have a 15-year-old grandson and I'm terrified for him. You know, I talk to him all the time, which he hates when I talk about sex. He don't want to talk about sex with me, but I do it anyway because he needs to hear the truth. But I understand peer pressure, you know, and I understand that at 17, 18, no matter if he's straight, gay, or whatever he may be, he's not going to want to go and talk to his doctor about PrEP. You know, so when you talk about HIV and the future of it, that's what frightens me. It frightens me that there are women still walking around. We don't use the word risk. We say your reasons. What are your reasons for doing things, right? But there are still women who don't think they have a reason to take PrEP or to get tested or to ask questions, you know. So that's where we are. But I do think that if we continue fighting and growing, we can really come out on the other side better. You know, because I think about how they started this. I'm gonna say this and shut up. I told Masanya
Right,
this
why
one
not
day
now?
at the biomedical conference. We were sitting at the table. I said, you know, we started this thing with a rubber band and a stick, right?
Please don't stop me.
And she was like, what?
People
I
don't
said, there was no, there were no resources when this thing
They
started.
just take.
So we gotta think back like that. Not that we wanna go back to that, but we have to keep fighting. You know, even if it's just
Then
with a rubber
go.
band and a stick, we gotta
Go.
keep going, y'all.
So you're going to transition us to the last segment, which is forward-looking and advice. So Tori, we're going to start with you. If you could change
Okay.
one thing about how society responds to HIV, what would it be?
Oh, one thing.
Okay, maybe two then.
Oh, all right, two then.
This
So
phone.
the first thing would be that there would be no restrictions to people getting whatever type of HIV care they need. That would be number one. If you need a bottle of pills, you get it. If you need an
I hate this
injection,
phone.
get it. If you need mental health, because that's part of HIV care, you get it. Need a place to lay your head that's safe and secure, you get it. That would be number one. And number two really has to
Can you
go back
put your
to
head up a
stigma.
little bit?
That people
No, not your cap, your head.
would
Put your
and
cap
could
down.
take ownership over their HIV and other health conditions and whatever their intersectional identities are in a way that helps get them to wholeness and health.
Yes.
Yeah, George?
I talk a lot about the primary doctor, but the referral doctors are worse in the fact that they don't understand HIV. They will tell you, oh, why don't you just take your pill? Why don't you do this? Why
Never
do you?
do anyway.
I've even had them ask me, how did you get HIV?
Stop it.
I tell them it's none of their business.
Right.
That they're not there to do that. And to be able to also talk about sexuality and to be comfortable enough to talk about, yes, I'm a gay man and I have sex and what that really means. And so changing of the whole healthcare system is needed right now.
Go ahead, Gina.
What's the question?
That's no problem. If you could change one thing or two about how society responds to HIV, what would it be?
I would hope that society would stop looking at people living with HIV as if we are a behavior and instead of being people. I would want society to look at us and say, you know, this is a health condition. What can we do as a society to help this health condition? It's not about who you sleep with or how you sleep with them. I can sleep with 100 men and use protection, a condom with each one of them. Or I could sleep with one person and not use a condom. So it doesn't even matter. You know, I hated the word promiscuous when they would say that, are you promiscuous? And I would say, what does that even mean? You know, what does it really mean? Because that's like, do I call myself that or are you calling me that?
Yes.
So that's what I want society to look at the way that society can change their thinking to truly help us impact HIV in a way that people are no longer getting a diagnosis. I live in a state that criminalizes HIV because they don't follow. Louisiana does not follow the science, y'all. No, you know, and it criminalizes HIV, which keeps people from getting tested, which means that we'll never get to end an epidemic because if you're not tested, you don't know you have it, and then if you sleep with someone condomless, then that person can get it, and it'll just keep going. So that's what I want society to do. Look at the part they play in this.
Okay. So we're going to come to our final question, all right? And that is, looking back, what do you wish you had known earlier in your journey? We'll start with you, Tori.
Okay. So my sex education from my peers was don't have sex with white men because they give you cooties and eggs. That was my sex education. It worked. Until it didn't. I never got cooties, but you know the rest.
Right.
But what I've learned is the streets have no idea what they're talking about. And that until we understand our bodies, our sexuality or lack of, our gender or lack of, and all of the wonderful things that make us uniquely us, then we are doomed to continue to repeat the cycle of HIV diagnosis, failed care, salvation, get to undetectable.
Mhm.
We're doomed to continue to repeat that cycle. And unfortunately, with the current administration, we're going to see a lot of more people who will never get to undetectable, at least not in the next few years. And so I would love for each of us to gain a better understanding of who we are as people. And I define intersectionality as all the ways that you would describe yourself using commas. So I'm Black, comma, woman, comma, happen to be trans, comma, size fluffy, comma, et cetera, et cetera. That's intersectionality. I live in the South, comma, and could go on. And each of us holds a bunch of those different identities. And so as we learn more about each of those different intersectional identities and embrace them, we become healthier people. And everybody around us does too. Your relationships get healthier. You're able to have much more in-depth and important conversations. I'm a joke with Gina here. You sleeping with people doesn't get you pregnant. It's having sex with people. And one of them happens to have a detectable power load that gets you HIV. So yeah.
You told me that before. I forgot.
Go ahead, George. Yeah.
For me, plan to age. We haven't, let me rephrase that. I didn't plan to age. I just recently turned 59. I never thought I was going to get this old. And now I'm starting to think retirement. I have no money to retire. So what does that mean? I didn't actively prepare to age with HIV. And so I think if we can let the younger generations know, you need to plan for this. This is not a death sentence. You've got to plan for this and to make sure that you move in that right direction.
Thank you. Last but not least.
What I wish I would have had back then was a Tori Cooper. Somebody who could give me real guidance and real wisdom. You know, the people that I was around when I first was diagnosed, they knew just as much as I knew, which was nothing. You know, none of us knew anything. So that's what I wish I would have.
Can you tell we like each other?
Yeah, I can tell.
A little.
And we love you for sitting here and sharing your stories and really enriching this conversation. So thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
We have, questions. Are there any questions out in the audience? I need you to come forward because I might not be able to hear you. Or stand up and give your biggest voice. We're going to go with the woman first, okay?
Let's go back to criminal.
You're welcome.
What can we do to improve the acceptance of our unmarried generation? That unmarried, my wedding is
What can we do to repeat? Oh, sorry, repeat the question. Parroting. Yeah. So what can we do to help educate our folks who are unmarried?
who are married.
Married who are married. Okay.
I'm 55, trying to tell stories. So when I was actively engaged in sex work, some of the best clients, I actually had guys who would write me checks who were married. Because they didn't want to take the risk of the check bouncing. So they were going to make sure the money was there, right? Real story, Wayne. So there's that. Married people have sex. And sometimes they have sex with their spouses. Sometimes they don't. What we have to do, I believe, is we have to model for people what education looks like, what prevention looks like, and what prevention looks like as education. We have to model for people, take some of your married girlfriends and get tested together. Like literally, hey girls, let's go get tested. Hey guys, why don't you and my husband, why don't y'all go get tested at the same time? All right. You don't have to share your your results with anybody else that's in the car. But we have to model for people and to provide support, because as terrible as those intake forms are, there's some rich information that can be gleaned from them too. When they ask you the question about have you had sex with this type of person in the last 6 months? For some reason, most people get in there and tell the truth to strangers. Isn't that weird? You won't tell the truth to the person who you have sex with, but you'll tell the truth to a complete stranger. Everybody doesn't do it, but a lot of people do. And so from that, it opens the door to have the most honest, meaningful conversations, because you become a trusted ally all of a sudden as to other married people. And so model for people what they can look like. Offer to take them in your car.
Mhm.
Can I ask that? So today is asking about wedding anniversary.
Happy anniversary, little brother.
But I mentioned that because
Oh.
as a HIV physician,
Ulysses, your online people can't hear you. So I mentioned that because as an HIV physician, I want to practice what I preach, right? And so every year for my annual, I get a full STD panel makeup, and it's not because of anything wrong with my marriage or anything else. And my primary care physician knows that, and so she knows when I come in, let's do all the work, and I know exactly how it's going to come back. But I do it as an example so that when I tell somebody else, hey, you need to still be, making sure that these things are things that you check for, even in your marriage, and I'm not saying that there's something wrong with your marriage, because there's nothing wrong with mine, but it's a good practice. It's a good habit to keep. And so, it doesn't suggest anything. It just is. It's a part of our health. Our health doesn't take place between, this area of our bodies. It takes place up here, and it takes place down there too. And so when I go get a physical, I want to have a full assessment of everything that's going on with me, regardless of what I think is going on or not. So I just wanted to share that on today in particular, as my wife let me be here to work with y'all, so that.
And I just want to let everyone know we will have HIV testing at Gallery Place on the 3rd floor, M3. So stop by if you don't know your status, to get your status.
Thank you. AJ, you had a question?
Johnson from Positive Assistance in Orlando, and I stepped off for a while, so excuse me if it has been covered, but my question is kind of the 3-point thing. Do you currently have a faith-based leader, say pastor, because it's not always a pastor, a faith-based leader that you are able to talk to, communicate with? And if so, how did that relationship start, and what was their initial response?
So the question is, do you have a faith-based leader that you can speak with? And the second part of that is, how did the relationship form?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. What was their response to your status?
Well, I don't have one.
So I have a couple, one at my church in Atlanta, Tabernacle Baptist Church, which is really a Baptist church. But under the pastorate of Bishop Dennis Meredith, who's now retired, he started an HIV ministry. And because we followed each other on social media and some of the other congregants, they found out about the work that I did. And so he asked me to be a part of it. So that's how it started. And ironically, he ended up coming out as gay later. And his wife, his ex-wife, is one of my, she's a very dear friend. We actually went to see a play the other day, and she has continued to support and provide support for people who are living with HIV and folks who just want to know more. So when you are able to bring your fullest self into anything that you do, especially into the house of God and into your worship, I think other people just want to be a part of it.
Thank you. George, anything?
I have several. I have 2 in this room, and they know who I am, who they are, that I turn to. And so I do a lot of interfaith work. So I even have leaders that are other religions, because it's important in the work that I do. And my faith is so important that we have to do interfaith work. We can't be in silos. It's time that we break all this down.
Mhm. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Texas, and I've worked with the Houston Health Department for many years, but I'm a member of a radically inclusive church. And at my church, what we do is we teach what HIPAA is, even to ministry, because many times a person will come to you in confidence to talk about something outside their marriage. And then the person will come over and say, well, she has to do, you can't say, she just say it, but that's confidential. And the HIPAA law protects her. So I do a HIPAA training in my church every year to let my ministry know if I feel safe enough to come to you in my church, and you come in, and we have a testing, so I'm over the HIV testing part also. So that a spouse will ask, what did she say? I cannot tell you because of HIPAA.
Mhm.
What did my wife just say to you? And the last thing was I had a couple getting back together. She felt like the husband had many relationships outside the marriage, they were getting back together. And she said, what could I do to ask him to test before we come back together? And we had to do several role plays in confidence on how she would tell him that she needed to know respectfully while they were apart. So I'm just saying that I will go from the health department into my church and teach some of the laws around it to make that safe place, that faith-based safe place, a safe place for us to come in and talk, tell the truth, and grow for as your hope. And we renamed it Health and Wholeness, your whole person.
Mhm. So we had a gentleman speaking from Texas who was sharing that annually he works in the health department and comes in and gives a talk about HIPAA so that folks understand privacy laws. And that another story he shared was that a woman came in who had separated from her husband, and before they got back together, did some role playing so that she could figure out the best way to approach him in case he had been having relations outside before they got back together. Yeah. One last one before we go. No? Again, let's give our panelists a round of applause. And let's give our moderators a hand clap.